Welcome to Move the Sticks. I am Bucky Brooks, and that is my man on the other side of the screen, Lance Zierlein. LZ, what's going on? How was your Memorial Day?
Oh man, it was good. It was just did a little cleaning around the house, got some things thrown out, took some things to the trash, and then watched my Astros. No pun intended. Just watch my Astros get their 18th no hitter since their inception. Leads the league by a good margin, 18 no hitters, and so since I've been on the radio, they've thrown 8. So no big deal.
No big
Just
deal.
another no-hitter.
They only had 15 guys contribute to that, right? That was like a collaborative effort. It wasn't like one guy just getting it done.
Only 3 this time. Only 3. A kid from Japan who has not been happy being in the States. Like, I wanted some of the Dodger Japanese players or Yankee Japanese players. We get one, and he's immediately Tatsuya Imai is immediately like, "This mound is too hard. Y'all eat dinner at at the park. I'm used to eating it at the hotels." And I'm like, "Man, you gotta things aren't gonna be the same, man. You gotta adjust."
Yeah,
an adjustment.
Well, congratulations to him for being a part of the no. I saw that run across the screen last night. ESPN. I was checking out like the end of the hockey game, the Carolina Hurricanes.
You're hockey. You'll watch hockey too.
Our hometown team. They appear to be on their way to going to the Stanley Cup. They had an overtime win over the Montreal Canadiens, so that was good. But we got to talk about this because this was popping up on social. I wasn't paying attention. I was kind of all over the place this weekend, but I did not know Mike Wilbon and Stephen A. Smith caused a little bit of a controversy when they had the conversation regarding Aaron Rodgers versus John Elway. And Mike Wilbon lambasted Stephen A. Smith, and I would say really so, for saying he has no idea what he's saying when he's talking about Aaron Rodgers is a more physically talented quarterback than John Elway. I just can't believe that's what I heard. And I know you are in the camp with me. There's no way you believe that Aaron Rodgers is a more talented and gifted quarterback than John Elway.
Hold up. Now, I did say this. I'm trying to look exactly what I tweeted. It was not that long ago. It was last week where I said Aaron Rodgers is the most talented thrower of the football that I've ever seen. Now, physically gifted is a little different. And you and I can get into the differences because I think it's an interesting concept when we start talking about quarterback play, because there is the mental, which is totally different. Like Joe Montana, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was not physically gifted per se. He had some, an average arm, kind of threw a little wobbly. His ball was not the prettiest ball out there, but he could beat you with his mind. John Elway, Dan Marino, but Elway's on a different level. Like Marino had a special arm. Elway had everything. I mean, everything. And then, but for what I was talking about in terms of release quickness, zip, placement on all 3 levels, ability to throw on the move to wherever you wanted, however you wanted to designate a passer of the football, whether in the pocket or out of the pocket, the most talented I've ever witnessed throwing the football across all levels of definition would be Aaron Rodgers. Now, if we're talking about the most physically gifted, I think you might be right. I think Josh Allen's up there with John Elway, though. I think he's up there. And I think we have a tendency to lean towards the bigger quarterbacks, but the bigger quarterbacks who can sling it and who can run, they obviously, have an advantage. If Cam Newton were a better passer of the football,
that's the one.
He would be really intriguing too. He just wasn't as accurate as the other 2 guys. I mean, Josh Allen has done what I thought was the impossible, which has become a substantially more accurate passer. And I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure. I still think he might be one of the outliers. I don't buy into when people see an accuracy issue with the quarterback, Buck, and when we're doing our draft stuff, and you see all the fans, and sometimes media, and maybe sometime us, we try to say, well, maybe he can become a much more. I personally still operate off the fact that Josh Allen is not the norm. It's really rare to see somebody become a more accurate natural passer.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and like we kind of open up this conversation by including other guys outside of Aaron Rodgers and John Elway. I think it's great that you brought up Josh Allen because you certainly need to also bring up Cam Newton. I think if people go back and watch what Cam Newton did at Auburn, he was a one-man wrecking machine, leading a team that only had one other pro on that squad to a natty, and so Nick Fairley was the other guy that was able to get it done in the league that played along Cam Newton. So you talk about him, a big physical specimen who overwhelmed people. You talk about the accuracy being wayward. It certainly wasn't like high level consistently, but I would say he and Josh Allen also benefited from the fact that teams built offenses around their talents. And some of the things that we've seen from Josh Allen has been the scheme being able to correct some of the flaws that he may have entered the league with in terms of accuracy issues and those things. I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention, hey, Lamar Jackson was a freak of nature when he entered the league. I watched him personally when he played at Louisville against North Carolina. And I had never seen anybody who could do those things, run around. I can't even say like a running back, but like a scat back. He's just flying around, but also had really good passing skills and those things. And I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson being in the same draft class where we weren't quite ready for that new school quarterback. It's really interesting that those guys have kind of gone to the top of that class when we go back and look at it. Michael Vick was a freak of nature, but 2001 is my first draft. Left-handed, he was right at 6', 6'1". The league wasn't really ready for that kind of quarterback. He certainly is gifted. But in the conversation between Aaron Rodgers and John Elway, I think what's interesting, I was scouting the West Coast, Aaron Rodgers, Alex Smith. I gave both of them the exact same grade. And at the time, there was a stigma around Aaron Rodgers because he played for Jeff Tedford at Cal. And Jeff Tedford, if anyone knows him when he was at Fresno, then at Cal, they had this unique thing about the way they held the ball. Like they kind of held it on the shelf, and yeah, the way they cradled it, it was different. It was almost little league, high school like when you would see it. And I remember Mike McCarthy had to work tirelessly with Aaron Rodgers to kind of bring that more down to the middle of his chest, a more traditional way to do it. And his talent was good, and that KL team was fantastic. He had Deshaun Jackson and Marshawn Lynch and all those guys that had kind of come through during that time when Aaron Rodgers was there, and they lit it up. And he lit it up. He was very accurate and precise. And I saw them play against USC, and he had his way against them. He certainly was talented, but when I think about like a transcendent player, I couldn't put him in the transcendent category when he was a college prospect. Now, he's become a transcendent player as a pro. And I think my thing with Aaron Rodgers would be how guys can improve once they get to the league, because it was rocky for those first 2 to 3 years when he was working behind Brett Favre. And then when he finally got a chance to play, after that first season, he took off and he's become the gold jacket guy that he is. John Elway was different. And the reason why John Elway was different in my mind, number one overall pick in the NFL. He was drafted by the New York Yankees in baseball. He was drafted 52nd, a second round pick. You know who he was drafted in front of? Because we're talking about physically gifted. Tony Gwynn was drafted 6 spots after John Elway. That's how good John Elway was as a player, as a baseball player. That's what they thought about him. 6 spots ahead of that. Now, we're talking about the NFL career, the 5 Super Bowls, the first 3. I mean, no disrespect to those guys he played with for the Broncos, but he was carrying those guys. And I remember because I was playing Tecmo Bowl and video games with that team. That team didn't have much beyond John Elway.
No,
And then
they
you got
had
2 wins.
oh man, who
I
did they
mean,
have?
and then look, they had
Yeah, I
Tom Jackson
remember.
and all them. They didn't have Mecklenburg. They didn't have many guys, and he was throwing. Look, I think Sammy Winder was a back that he had.
Yeah.
Vance Johnson was one of the wide receivers. They didn't have much, but he was able to do it. I just think from a gifted standpoint, John Elway was more gifted than Aaron Rodgers, even though we can debate who had the better NFL career.
Yeah, yeah. You know, mine is very specifically the best passer of the football for me is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, and you can throw in John Marino. I mean, I'm sorry, Dan Marino. From the pocket, he had zip. He had this crazy quick release, but he was outside of the pocket. He didn't have that. John Elway had it outside of the pocket without question. Now, John Elway also came up in a time. This is so difficult to hear because I've got kids who are teenagers. Buck, you do. They like to argue sports. It's just based all on stats. It's all off the stats and lists. What
It's a
list
different
did they
game.
see today on TikTok or Instagram? What list did they see? And it's stats. And there's no way you can ever, like, it's jarring to look at any quarterbacks before about 1999, 2000, and you go look at their stats compared to now, it's two apples and oranges. You can't make the case because those quarterbacks were often relied on to throw more vertically. There's going to be more interceptions. It was less about controlled passing, so the completion numbers are lower. You don't have the same touchdown interception numbers. You don't have the same touchdown numbers in terms of passing touchdowns. But John Elway, what he was able to do is he carried a team on his back. Go
Mhm.
watch the documentary Elway that was on Netflix. Phenomenal. They cover everything about him starting in Stanford, about the fuss whenever he decided he did not want to go play for the Indianapolis, or at that time was the Baltimore Colts, I guess. And the look at whether or not he was a diva, and it's a great documentary, and it also shows what he went through his first 2-3 seasons. And then, we forget winning a championship is so important in football. And I know I'm all over the place here, but John Elway forever was the guy who couldn't get it done. He
Yeah.
was always great in the regular season. Look what happens in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Always this. He was the James Harden of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
NFL.
Yeah.
Although he was more consistent in the playoffs, but when he got to Super Bowls, he got wiped out. It wasn't always his fault, but he didn't play great in the Super Bowls either. And then once he got the title, it was gone. You didn't
Yeah.
have to. It's such a huge monkey off your back in the NFL for quarterbacks.
Yeah, it is. It's a big monkey off the back, and I think what has happened for us, people have gotten too loose with the terms generational talent, transcendent talent. Like we kind of lump those in, but if you think about by definition generation, man, you should see those guys like once every decade. If we're gonna put that tab on
At
him, but
most, at
yeah,
most.
I mean, like when we talk about it, and I think the one thing that we talk, and this has kind of changed also because I would say the way that teams have, on our side, the media side, we always talk about you push quarterbacks up. So teams have taken quarterbacks at number one overall. That back in the day, we never would have talked about them being the first overall pick or the best player in the draft. It's just because the game has changed where the passing game is modus operandi. That is how most teams are getting it done. They're throwing the ball all over. And if you don't have a quarterback, you don't really have a chance in this league. And so that has forced us to take more gambles and swings on people, number one. But if we treat the number one overall pick, if we treat the top five like it's supposed to, those guys should come fully equipped. We talk about no instructions needed. They should have the arm talent. They should have the athleticism, the pedigree, the IQ, all those things that you're looking for. And that should always be the standard when we talk about it. I would say now, Aaron Rodgers has become the gold standard at quarterback because in his prime, and look, he's 42, 43, he's not in the prime anymore.
Right.
But when we think about him in his prime, the way that he could deliver from the pocket, the way that he can make plays on second reaction, scrambles outside the pocket, moving, breaking plays, creating explosive play opportunities because he could move around and extend the play. I mean, that's kind of what you want in the modern quarterback. And that's what everyone is looking for when we talk about the next generation of quarterbacks, whether it's the Caleb Williams effect, Jaden Daniels, even to a lesser degree, Drake May being able to get outside of it. Aaron Rodgers has kind of laid the blueprint for what we expect the modern NFL quarterback to play like and to perform like inside and outside of the pocket.
Would you call John Elway generational? Do you put that label on him
I
officially?
think so. I think so back then because I think if you talk about like in the 80s when he came out, like you just didn't see quarterbacks who did that. Now here's the funny thing. We would have killed him if we were evaluating. His team never went to a bowl game. Like
Right.
just think about that at Stanford. Like as great as he is, number one overall pick,
It
as
was harder
talented
getting
as he
into a
is.
bowl game back then, though. It
Yeah,
was a lot
it
harder.
was. It was harder, but just think about how stringent the standards are now when we evaluate quarterbacks and how we put, team wins and QB wins into the equation. The fact that he didn't guide his team to a bowl game, that would have been something that would have been a talking point on the various shows that we've been on when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks and prospects.
Yeah, another guy that I took that into account with that I kind of I didn't sleep on him, but I did. I looked at the negative. It was a case of not projecting the talent because he was on a little bit of a quote unquote lesser team. Is Patrick Mahomes? He was on
Yeah.
a Texas Tech team. He played 3
Yeah.
years at Texas Tech. Also, he was also a pitcher, like John
Mm-hmm.
Elway. Um, And let's see, Texas Tech was 7-6, 4-5 in conference his sophomore year, where he led, I believe, the nation. We led his conference in passing yards with 4,653 yards and 36 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. The very next year, his final year in college, he threw for over 5,000 yards with 41 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas Tech that year in the Big 12 finished 5-7, but 3-6.
Yeah.
And so Pat Mahomes was not a winner
Mm-hmm.
in college, and he took a lot of chances. He made throws that were off platform that he shouldn't have, kind of developed some bad habits. And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, this reminds me of
It's a lot
Jay
of it.
Cutler. You got to remember, this is
Yeah.
2017 draft right up. And in 17, I'm like, this is reminding me of Jay Cutler. He's got all this talent, this great arm, but he just leans into doing some dumb stuff sometimes. And he got
It's,
out of that once
yeah.
he got a better crew around him.
Yeah, it's the same. So, like, it's funny you brought up Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was the same thing, man. He was a terrific talent for a middling Vanderbilt team.
Yep.
And they barely could get their nose over 500 while he was there. And some of that is, and I said I felt like it hurt Jay Cutler in his career because I tweeted this before. I've talked about it when I've written about him. He never understood how to play winning football because he was so careless and reckless with the ball, because that's what he always had to do at Vanderbilt. I don't know if he ever reined it in and learned how to really play winning football. And for Pat Mahomes, and I think it's funny, the revisionist history that people have now. Hey, I have texts in my phone from scouts that I talked to during that time where they said, hey, man, I give him a second repair. I've never seen this work. I've never seen this work in the league. I've never seen someone go from
He
being
was
a sandlot player.
He was an
Yes.
air guy too, which at the time was, you had just had Goff drafted with the first pick. But the thought at that time, and I remember because we got to keep up with draft trends
Yes.
in what we do, it was no air raid quarterbacks made it before. None. And Pat was the second air raid quarterback who also didn't win in college. Like, you're right. People have revised its revisionist history on Patrick Mahomes. It was a little bit of a risk for Andy to come up there to number 10 and Brett Veach to come up to 10. But I mean, obviously, the proof is in the pudding.
It has worked out. Okay, so I'm going to read. I just put it in my notes. I just put in my notes the stuff that people told me on him. He has serious arm talent. He was really impressive on tape before the injury. Sure, he's careless with the ball, but he makes some wild throws that few guys can make. Plus, he's athletic and tough. He would need some time to grow into the player that you want him to be, but he could be a star at the next level. Compared him to, listen to these two names we were talking about.
Go ahead.
Matthew Stafford and Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Second round. Then he said, another guy told me, physically, he's a first-round talent, but you have to be patient for his talent to reach his potential, forces a lot of balls. Some of that is due to having to do too much to make up for what Texas Tech lacks talent-wise. He had to do more to win shootouts in the Big 12. Their talent is on the lower end of the conference. Just really, really interesting to have two guys who are well-respected scouts tell me that back then. And one, for me to keep that in my notes, that is bananas. Like, I'm trying to, March 30th, 2017. That's when those texts came in, but I have them. This is a nice jump off point because in that comment, I talked about Jay Cutler and Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford just inked a deal that is phenomenal. 1-year extension, $55 million. That is worth up to $60 million value with incentives. 38. He is now under contract until 2027. He is coming off an MVP year where he had 4,700 yards, 46 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 109.2 passer rating. So now this leads us to top 5 quarterbacks going into 2025. Now, Lance, I know we both have our list, but I think it's hard not to put the MVP at number 1 when Matthew Stafford is coming off that kind of year. So for me, I have Matthew Stafford at number 1 just because the efficiency, the effectiveness, the playmaking ability, the explosive plays that passing game generates with him at quarterback. I know he's almost 40, but I haven't seen anybody play that kind of ball like that right then. So right now, and I know in this new era with all these new school quarterbacks, I'm kind of going with a traditionalist, an old school throwback in Matthew Stafford to be number 1 on my list. What do you think?
Yeah, I got him at number 1 too. I mean, it's hard, and it's not like we're basing this on a year. I mean, Matthew Stafford, this is a long run. He's like wine. He's getting better with age. And I don't see it changing. There's not any signs. You know, a lot of times with quarterbacks, maybe you can see some signs here or there, and every once in a while the fall off will be precipitous immediately, like we saw with Peyton Manning, where it was just all of a sudden went from 50 touchdowns to like was almost a liability for the Broncos. The year they won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, you know, it's crazy because I don't see any fall off. He looks the exact same as he's
Mhm.
looked over these last several years. 40, if anything, he's looked substantially better. This is
Yeah.
the most impressive statistical campaign he's ever had. His touchdown to interception numbers are exceptional. Like Buck at 37, there's no, and remember, he had an arm issue coming into
Mhm.
last season that we didn't know if it would heal properly. Wasn't it last season or was that the year?
He
No, it
had a
was
back.
last season.
He had back. He had arms. He's had a few different issues that
Yeah.
caused some concern that we thought he may not even come back and play again.
Yeah. Because I remember the Texans had him week 1, and we thought Matthew Stafford may not even be a factor in week 1. And I don't know. At that time, we didn't know the MVP was taking on just an absolute, you know, hornet's nest of a defense in that first week to start last year. But I don't put Johnny come latelys up lightly. Right.
Yeah.
Drake May. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't want to spoiler alert you, but I'm glad he had a great year last year, but we'll see if he makes it on my top 5. But Matthew Stafford is a pedigree talent, and he looks like he's playing his best football right now. I have to put him at number 1 too. Respect for last year. There's no reason to think there's a big fall off coming.
Okay, so number
I'm
2.
gonna go number 2. I'm gonna snake it.
Okay, let's do it.
I've got Josh Allen at number 2. I'm looking
Oh,
everything we talked about with Josh Allen. I mean, that's why I'm plugging him in at number 2.
hey, look, man, I'm right there with you. I have him at
Yep.
number 2, and I think what it is right now for Josh Allen is the overall threat that he poses as a run pass playmaker, inside outside the pocket. 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but what he does on the ground and those got to have it moments. And I'll say this, like I can't say that he is coming off a spectacular year statistically, but I felt like it might have been his best year in terms of just the way that he willed this team to victory. And I got a chance to see it in the postseason wildcard round. He took over the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what he's done is I think he's become a mature playmaker where he will run in these, what I call the gotta have it moments. Third down and crucial, red zone, game on the line, 2-minute situation. That's when he'll take off. He's learned how to protect himself by not putting himself in harm's way as much, but it's still dangerous. And so that's why, to me, he's worthy of being number 2. Now, his nemesis comes right in after him, and that's Pat Mahomes at number 3. And I know most times I would say Pat Mahomes is number 1, but given the knee injury and given maybe the fall off of the offense, he kind of suffers um, because of that. But make no mistake about it, this dude is a phenomenal talent. I read off those notes from way back. He has exceeded all expectations when he came into the league. A unicorn at the position in terms of how he how he runs around, makes plays. He's been MVP a couple times. He's done it in the Super Bowl level. He had the Kansas City Chiefs on a remarkable run where they won the 5 Super Bowl. All those things that you demand from a quarterback, he's checked off the boxes. It's just now, what is the bounce back like coming off that knee and having to kind of flip this roster as they try and get younger as their stars age out?
This is a tougher one for me, just because it gets very subjective after the first couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with Mahomes too, out of respect for I know who he can be. I didn't want to hold last year against him. I don't want to hold the ACL against him this year because I already know he's going to come back just as good as he was. He and Bob Stroop, his trainer, they do a great job of getting after it. So I think you have to put Pat Mahomes there for everything that we've seen as a winner, as a playmaker, his ability to command games. There's no reason to think he won't bounce back. He's not going to be in control of what is around him and what surrounds him, and
Mm-hmm.
Rashee Rice's issues and Travis Kelsey getting older, the offensive line being beat up last year. He has no control over that. As a quarterback, if I wanted to stick a quarterback on any team in the league, Pat Mahomes is one of the top 3 that I'm picking. So that's why I put Pat 3rd. Number 4 is going to probably surprise you a little bit.
Okay, here we
And
go.
this is where it got a little bit tough. I ended up going with Jared Goff. And
Woo!
yeah.
Okay, Jared.
Hold
Jared gets
on. And he's not the most so I'm gonna tell you why. He kind of fell into it because Lamar has been hurt and hasn't played at the same level the last couple years. Joe Burrow, I got to see Joe Burrow. I got to see Joe do it again. Honestly, I need to see Joe do it again. He's talking about, I don't know, I want to get where I love football again. I'm like, oh my gosh, can't be doing this, Joe. I'm not ready to put Jalen there. Jalen Hurts there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting Drake there. And the reason I said Goff is because Goff is just steady. He's
Yeah.
not going to excite you. 4,500 yards. The last 4 years, he's played every game. He's going to show up 4,500 yards passing every single year. He's going to average about 7.7, 7.8 a
Mm-hmm.
pass. He's over 30 touchdowns. He averages over 30 touchdowns. His interception totals are relatively low in terms of touchdown to interception numbers. I know what I'm getting from Jared Goff. Now, the problem is Lamar Jackson can win games for
Mm-hmm.
you. Joe Burrow can win games for you when he's on. There's a few guys that can win games, but if I went by the idea that I can stick Pat Mahomes on any offense, I feel like if I stuck Jared Goff in any offense, he's going to pretty much give me the same numbers, I think, and the same consistency.
Look, man, I give you a lot of credit. Like, that is a bold move to put Jared Goff up there. And I would say this: he's the most slept on top 8 quarterback in the league, like for the consistency that he's put up. And I think the litmus test was him going to Detroit, where everybody thought he was going to Detroit to fall off and his career was going to die, for him to flourish in that moment. Now, some people say, yeah, but Ben Johnson. Well, Ben Johnson wasn't Ben Johnson when Jared Goff got there. I mean, Dan Campbell eventually was taking over the plays and handed it to Ben Johnson. And then Ben Johnson and Jared Goff got together and that offense exploded. So give him credit, a systematic surgical playmaker. I like him. I don't have him in my top 5. I got Joe Burrow in this spot. And part of that, I think, is reputation for me with Joe Burrow. When he's healthy and available, he and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like, they're an unstoppable offense. But you are right. It is time for him to, like, put up or shut up. Like, he has played at a high level, and they have gone to Super Bowls and those things. Some would say they probably should have won the Super Bowl if not for a bad call down in the red zone. But they missed the playoffs the last 3 years. And at some point, his lack of availability has been an issue. So he needs to be upright. He needs to be there and available for the 17 games that they play, and he needs to play at that level. So right now, he gets a little bit of a pass for me, but I have him at 4. At 5 for me, I feel like you're about to hate on my guy from Chapel Hill, but I'm going to put him at 5 because, look, I think people have a little recency bias based on how he underperformed in the playoffs, and that is Drake May. Drake May, look, if the postseason doesn't cloud it, I think Drake May had a strong case to be the MVP. I think it would have been hard for him to be named, even though the votes are done at the end of the regular season. I think it would have been hard for him to be named MVP after what we saw with our eyes in the postseason. But that said, that shouldn't take away from the fact he had over 4,300 yards. He had 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The Patriots came out of nowhere to be the AFC champion and to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And a lot of that was due to his play and his performance throughout the regular season. He can operate inside and outside the pocket. He can deal and deliver with surgical precision. He has the athleticism to make plays with his legs. We talk about the new school, the prototypes. He is one of those guys that we're going to talk about and celebrate as a new school quarterback that is going to be a perennial top 5 talent.
You know, I'm given, and I've admitted, I gave Pat kind of a pass just because it's not about it's him as a talent, and I'm not counting last year against him. Some would say, why are you counting Joe Burrow against him? Because just the year last year against him, because just the year before he had this 5,000 yard passing season. You know, Joe had this incredible season. It's the injuries for me for Joe Burrow.
Yep.
It's I want to see Joe stay healthy. I want to see him win at a clip. Number 5, I've got, really there's 3 names, and I'm having a hard time with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Dak Prescott. And
Yeah.
Dak, I thought Dak played really well last year. The year before Dak got hurt, he played 8 games. And Dak has had his own issue with injuries at times. But 2 of the last 3 years, when Dak has been fully healthy, Dak has taken his game to another level as a passer. He went out and corrected some things, and he went out and made changes to his body type, made
Mm-hmm.
changes to his mechanics, and I think it's made it. You can tell he's worked on his game over the years, and he's become a much better pocket passer. That defense was so janky last year
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't really get the respect he probably deserved for the season he had offensively. I think Dak is right there knocking on the door with Joe and Lamar Jackson. And like I said, I've got a bias against a 2-year player in Drake May simply
Mm-hmm.
because I want him to do it the third year. I want him to have a good year. I'm not going to kill him for the postseason stuff, but I do want to see another good, strong year because they're playing a much tougher schedule this year. Let's see how you do against the best teams in the league. And when we have this conversation in a year, he'll be on my list more than likely.
Okay, who's next for you? Who's the next one? Who's the guy, the breakout
I mean,
guy?
the next that I stamped was is Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow and over Dak. And I gave you those
Mm-hmm.
guys who were fighting the fifth spot for me. Because Goff, I did put it 4. And I decided going with Lamar just because I know he can make plays and win games for you individually. And I know Lamar got hurt last year, and I know he was hurt for a time during his NFL career, but over the last few years, he's actually been relatively healthy. He has not had the same amount of injuries. For what I'm going to his numbers right now. He had in 16 and 17 and 26 and 27, both of those years, he was much healthier. He's coming off a 41 touchdown performance last year. We know it wasn't as good. Look, the arguments I make against Joe Burrow, you could make against Lamar Jackson if you wanted to. You could make to a lesser extent against Dak Prescott, who has missed some time as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's just that I can't put Herbert there. I can't do it. I'm tired of everyone just putting Herbert on the pedestal when he hasn't
Yeah.
done enough in the postseason. You got to do it in the postseason. I'm not feeling it with Jared Love, if I'm being honest. Jalen Hurts has no momentum coming into this season, in my opinion. And the guy I'd love to put in there, but I got to see him do it again is Caleb Williams. I think Caleb's starting to show he's got some stuff. Like the things we thought we knew about him in a regular, coming into the draft when he was drafted in, what was that, 24? I saw some of that stuff flash last year. So I'm not so sure that he's not in this conversation hot and heavy next year.
Look, see, I know this, and I'm a little disappointed. Even in all the honorable mention names that you have, you didn't
I threw a
mention.
lot at you.
No,
I'm
no, no,
straddling.
no, 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 no. You a lot of honorable mention names, but I know what this is. This is that H-Town bias that you'll have against my guy who is next, which is Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has to be in this conversation in terms of being next. I'm just looking at the numbers: 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and I know what everyone's saying. Oh, he's the guy who hasn't done anything, but everyone loves him because he was number 1 overall pick. But I'm saying it's a different Trevor Lawrence. It's just a different Trevor Lawrence that is coming. This dude scored 38 touchdowns last year. He gets with Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen will tell you that 2 areas Trevor has to improve upon to be one of those top 5 guys. I would say 1 is the completion percentage has to go up. You can't complete 60% of your passes. You got to get that up to 67% in this league. Against the amount of soft coverage that you see, you have to be able to dial with more consistency in terms of delivering short, intermediate passes. That's 1. The other part is the overall efficiency. 12 interceptions is a lot in this game. When we rattled off those numbers for those guys at the top, they're in single digits. If he lowers the interceptions, his passer rating goes up well over 100. And we have seen Drake May, who I talked about, 113 passer rating because he took care of the ball. So it's that fine line between being aggressive and reckless. Once he learns how to straddle that line, man, the sky's the limit. So I'm telling you right now, we revisit this. You guys can clip it and put it on the thing. When we come back next year at this time and talk about these quarterbacks, my man, number 16, Trevor Lawrence, is going to be in there because Liam Cohen, that offense they got around him, he's ready to take the jump to be one of those elite quarterbacks in this league.
Listen, I just got to put context on this so Bucky doesn't fool y'all.
What are we talking about?
Well, listen, Bucky's trying to use a sleight of hand on you, a card trick. He's pulling his He's got that old school David Blaine stuff where he packs himself in an ice cube or something like that. Listen, I'm going to run through the game log. These are the last 6 games for Trevor Lawrence, okay? Here's who he played. Tennessee twice, a broke-down Indianapolis team twice, the Jets, and then, of course, at Denver, and that's a good Denver team. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Shout out Trevor Lawrence. Good game for him. Against Tennessee in the first game, 229, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Colts, they were a wounded dog, 244, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Jets, 330, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Broncos, shout out, 279, 3-0. Against the Colts, at the Colts the second time around, Bucky, you remember this, 263, no touchdowns, 1 interception. And then he finished off the woeful Titans with 255, 3 touchdowns. So he had 15 touchdowns and 1 interception over his last 6 games.
Sizzling.
But those teams, those were Tennessee, in Indianapolis twice, the Jets, and Denver. So
I mean, what it sounds like, Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. That's what it sounds like. He was on fire. He was on fire. And I just think that's going to continue on. Like, I hear what we're saying. Broken
he's
down.
The Landry. You're saying he's the Landry Shamet of the AFC South.
Whatever.
The Mikal Bridges of the AFC South.
Every time I look out and I see those teams with those logos, whatever, there's a little NFL shield on their jersey. They're NFL teams, NFL players. He can't help. He cannot help who runs out the other end of the tunnel. He just got to give them the business like he gave them. And I think he's going to give a lot of teams the business when we talk about how he ends up as a top 5 quarterback.
All jokes aside, one of my highest draft grades I've ever put out there was on Trevor Lawrence. And I got a lot of respect for Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen, what he's done at the Rams and then at Kentucky and then back to the Rams and then now with Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, legitimate quarterback whisperer. I think Liam Cohen is one of those guys. I know we do it with Ben Johnson a lot, but I think you got to start doing it with you have to start doing it with Liam Cohen as well. It looks like that if Trevor plays well again this next year and starts to solidify, the potential of who we thought he was, if he shows that that's who he's becoming, or even a variation of that, then Liam Cohen's going to deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, look, man, you know who deserves a lot of credit? My man LZ for coming on and helping me sort out these top 5 quarterbacks, helping me kind of have a debate and an argument about Aaron Rodgers and John Elway. And overall, just being a great dude to come on and chat some ball. So later in the week, we'll be back on Move the Sticks to discuss some more news and notes in the NFL from a scouting perspective. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. That's LZ. We're out.